the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Mrs. Carmona, the Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and Mrs. Rowley, the Honorable Chief Justice and spouse, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition and spouse, distinguished members of the clergy, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and very especially Hazel and Brian and David and the entire Manning family. The prophet Job tells us, man that is born of a woman is of a short time and is full of trouble. And then he goes on to pose arguably the most profound and challenging question in the Hebrew. If a man lives, if a man dies, shall he live again? Patrick Manning was my dear friend and comrade. He was my real brethren. I loved him very much. I shall remember him as a human being of the highest quality who followed faithfully our Lord's instruction as told to us by the prophet Micah, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Patrick was a devoted husband, a loving father, and an exceptional human being to whom God accorded wisdom and knowledge, taught him to see what lurked in the darkness, revealed to him the truth and the way, and where dwelleth the light. The Honorable Patrick Manning was an extraordinary parliamentarian and representative of the people, leader of the People's National Movement, an outstanding and visionary
the voice of Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Of his exceptional qualities, his excellence in spirit, his trustworthiness and honesty, and his overflowing love and caring for his people. I first met Patrick in the late 1960s when we were both students at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. We were in different faculties and we lived in different halls of residence, but were drawn together by steel band music, an interest in and a sense of being children of our unique and ennobling Caribbean civilization. At university, Patrick and I played in the steel band at Irving Hall, although I was a Taylor Hall man. He followed my leadership when, as president of the Guild of Undergraduates, I led a massive protest against the Jamaican government on October the 16th, 1968, because of that government's denial of entry to that country to Walter Rodney, a university lecturer and renowned political activist. Patrick and I, among other thousands, were tear-gassed by the Jamaican constabulary and army, and some of us suffered more. That was not my last tear-gassing, it was Patrick's last. Later, I was to follow his leadership in CARICOM and elsewhere. By now, everyone who has the slightest interest in Caribbean politics knows that Patrick and I were real tight political buddies during his second and third terms as Prime Minister between 2002 and May 2010. No two Prime Ministers were as selflessly bound as both of us. We spoke to each other on the phone very frequently, mainly on early mornings, We collaborated closely on numerous initiatives and activities in Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and across the Caribbean and elsewhere. He assigned to me a mission to lead a Trinidad and Tobago mission to Colombia, Ecuador, and Bolivia to plug for this country to be the headquarters of a possible free trade area of the Americas, a proposal which was subsequently scuttled, and we worked as a tag team in CARICOM. I was the veritable balm of Gilead between Patrick and Owenata when the interests of Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados clashed, whether on aviation, civil aviation, investment, maritime boundaries, or Bajan flying fish illegally trespassing in Tobago waters. I could still hear Patrick telling me over and over again, "Boy Ralph, Owenata is a strange fella." I would reply, "Patrick, the Trinis buy the Bajans bank. They buy their soft drinks factory, close it down and sell them soft drink from Trinidad. All you're taking over the Bajan economy, and Owen is Napoleon. What do you expect?" I would also tell him truthfully that Owenata respected him and held him in high esteem personally. He found that out for himself on the eve of the 2010 general elections in Trinidad and Tobago. Patrick had a very playful side. He was stuffed with humor, mirth, and laughter. One day, in the midst of serious business at a heads of government meeting in St. Lucia, he came to me, "Ralph, that tenor pan we used to play, the one with the 27 notes, it was sweeter than the spiderweb palm that Randy played." Randy was the Trinidadian leader of the steel band at UWI. I replied to him, "Yes, it was much sweeter, but it had 28 notes, not 27. This man Patrick started to argue with me, telling me he go bet me an oil field in Trinidad against one of the bigger, that he's right. So I said, "Well, the bet is on." I told him, "When you go back to Trinidad, call the captain of Desperados." I think his name at this time was Rudolph Edwards, because he is still using that pan. It was invented by invaders and perfected by despots, and has 28 notes with a big F sharp in the middle. That's what I told him. A few days later, Patrick called me. He said, "You're right. The tenor pan got 28 notes." So I said, "I come in for my oil field." He laughed uproariously. "Nah, that bet is unenforceable in contract. But I come in to enjoy my Grenadine Islands." He's yet to come. He will not ever come except in spirit, through Hazel, Brian, and David, and in my glorious memory of him. Patrick Manning was possessed of a spirit of generosity and gifted with the grace of solidarity. His government established a CARICOM Petroleum Fund with a portion of the windfall gained from the high petroleum prices, so as to assist those Caribbean countries which had suffered adversely from the increases in petroleum prices. From that fund, assistance was granted to projects designed to reduce poverty, to help LIAT, to strengthen security, to construct airport facilities, and to rebuild the physical infrastructure after the devastation wrought by hurricanes and storms. St. Vincent and the Grenadines benefited enormously from the generosity of the governments led by Patrick Manning. I say thanks yet again on behalf of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we head back to the main podium for the rest of his address.
That community, there's a village, and since 2006 the people have been calling it Manning Village. The houses in that area, through the generosity of Patrick Manning, they were built after a storm. And when I handed out the keys to 20 or 30 houses, the people shouted and said, "We call it Manning Village." Maybe that is the only village in the world called after Patrick. Jerry Norris, who is here, I believe Barry Sinanan is here. They and their spouses came to look for me one day, and I took them to see Manning Village, so they could testify to the truth of this. The world is a much better place for Patrick Manning's sojourn among us. Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean are much better places. Patrick touched thousands upon thousands of lives for the better. To be sure, his life work on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean was not surprisingly dogged by critics. In the Hebrew Bible, where we do not find the competitiveness of party politics and its handmaiden of a virtually unregulated, bitingly caustic modern communication system, there's a remarkable story of the prophet builder Nehemiah. In accordance with Nehemiah's vision and that of his people, he, Nehemiah, set about the rebuilding of the city wall around Jerusalem, a massive capital project of existential significance. But the critics, led by Sanballat and Tobiah of the Ammonites, mocked Nehemiah. This mockery turned to anger and resentment, and then to conspiracy. But Nehemiah persisted in his work. In his day, Patrick suffered at times similarly. Not merely the slings and arrows of misfortune, not merely too from those who are full of sound and fury and signifying nothing, but very much from the modern day Sanballats and Tobiahs of the Ammonites. Some of those who even benefited immensely and personally from his efforts turned askance from him. That too is not surprising. I know that Patrick forgave them all. Because of the absence of malice in him, and because he had long realized that too many men and women, not all, are greedy and fickle by nature and live in a permanent condition of dissatisfaction and ingratitude. There is nothing you or I can do for any such person. We simply leave that matter to Almighty God. On the Tuesday before Patrick died, I visited him at the San Fernando General Hospital. I spent a long time with him in the presence of his dear wife, Hazel. He was in good spirits. It was a joyous visit, full of love and laughter. We reminisced about our past. We talked of the present and mused about the future. We talked about family, which was important to him. We talked about our coming 70th birthdays. Mine is on August the 8th. His was to be on August the 17th, but now no more. The Lord give it, and the Lord take it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Today, and on his birthday, August the 17th, and as long as I live, there will reverberate in my consciousness for Patrick the uplifting words from Pericles' funeral oration, delivered some 440 years before the birth of Christ, as told to us by Thucydides in the history of the Peloponnesian War. For to famous men, all earth is a sepulchre, and their virtues shall be testified not only by inscription in stone at home, but by an unwritten record of the mind, which more than of any monument will remain with everyone forever. He is in the hearts and minds of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, and that is more important than any monument unto his name. Hazel, Brian, David, family and friends, you all know something profound. In Patrick, the love of honor never grew old. You know that he was not possessed of that unprofitable part of life with which so many are obsessed, that is the gathering of wealth unjustly gained. Patrick died with his honor intact. His character unblemished, and his life work meritorious and rightly celebrated. Farewell, my dear friend and comrade. The iconic poet of the Caribbean, Martin Carter of Guyana, assists me in this farewell, in his poem, Death of a Comrade. Death must not find us thinking that we die. Too soon, our banner draped for you. I would prefer the banner in the wind, not bound so tightly in a scarlet fold, not sodden with your people's tears, but flashing on the pole we bear aloft, down and beyond this dark, dark lane of rags. Now, from this morning vanguard moving on, dear comrade, I salute you and say, death will not find us thinking that we die. On behalf of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, on my own behalf and that of my family, I extend condolences yet again to Hazel and Brian and David, the immediate friends and family, and to the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago. May he rest in peace, and may light perpetual shine upon you.